All right, what's up, my brothers? In this video, I want to address the claim that Donald Trump is going to be annexing Canada, making it the 51st state. It's something that happened recently just over the holidays, and I know he's about to be sworn in as president. So I've had a bunch of people ask me to chime in. Guys, if you're new to the channel, Rich Cooper, entrepreneur, best-selling author, relationship expert. I wanted to chime in on this topic today because it's near and dear and close to my heart. I've got a quick 1-minute video I'd like to play to add some context, and then we'll talk about Canada potentially joining the US, what that might look like, why it could happen, and how I would see it coming together ideally. Let's play this first.
Recently, Donald Trump suggested Canada join the US as a state. Here's how that might look. The US territory would span 7.6 million square miles, 13% of Earth's land area, making it the largest country, surpassing Russia's 6.6 million square miles. With vast resources, the nation would have 200 billion barrels of proven oil reserves, abundant timber, minerals, and the world's largest freshwater supply. Its population of 373 million would bring a substantial increase, though it would still lag far behind China and India. Economically, Canada's 2.2 trillion GDP would rank as the fourth largest among US states, behind New York, but ahead of Florida. The total GDP of $28 trillion would solidify America's position as the world's largest economy. However, per capita GDP, at $53,834, the state of Canada would rank near the bottom, just above Mississippi and below Arkansas, despite its resource wealth.
All right, well, let's hit the road and have a little conversation about Canada becoming the 51st state. And if you don't know this, I am Canadian, and just outside of me is typical Canadian winter weather. Bit of a snowstorm today, and it's quite slippery out, so we'll see how I manage on the highway heading back. But yeah, this is Canada. So you notice in that video, they were talking about how Canada has this massive amount of natural resources. It missed a few things. I know it covered fresh water, oil. We've got tons of lumber. Hydroelectricity capacities are through the roof. In fact, a lot of our hydro capacity right now is already sold to the United States. Minerals, on and on and on, right? Like Canada is a country rich in natural resources that has historically been run by idiots. And I'll break it down for you. If you take a geographic region in the world like Dubai, for example, you've got a country that's rich in oil. That's it. Dubai's just got oil, right? And they somehow managed to figure out how to lower taxes to very reasonable rates, almost nothing in many circumstances, good quality of living, good health care, safe cities. You know, I'm told, I don't live in Dubai, obviously, but I'm told by friends that do live there and have lived there that you can literally take a Rolex off, leave it on the table with your expensive phone, walk away, go to the bathroom, come back, and it'll still be there. So that's the kind of country that Dubai is. But more specifically, what I'm talking about is the resources that they have as a nation really just boil down to oil. That's it. And their oil reserves aren't the biggest in the world. Obviously, they're vast, but they're not the biggest. Canada, I believe, has the third largest oil reserves in the world. But again, fresh water, hydroelectricity capacity, minerals, lumber, blah, 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 right? Like I said earlier, it's a country rich in natural resources run by absolute idiots. So one of the complaints a lot of Canadians have, myself included, and I did a video about this, I'll put a card up on the top right that broke down really 7 reasons why Canada's been failing as a country. I've lived here for the better part of 40 odd, maybe 45 years of my life or so, and those reasons are pretty significant. Just looking at my notes here, we've got weather, taxes, politics, crime, housing, healthcare, immigration. Those are the main ones. Those are the things that have made Canada a very unfavorable place to live, you know, if I can put it that way. Just about everybody that I know that's an entrepreneur that had a location independent business over the last 5 or 6 years, let's say, because Trudeau's been prime minister for 9-10 years now, they've basically taken their location independent business. They said, you know what, I don't think I want to live here anymore, I'm out. And they took their business and they left, and they went to places in the Caribbean, Mexico, low tax havens in, you know, the Middle East or in Eastern Europe, for example, places like that. So they basically took their, you know, toys and they left. So Canada does have a real problem. Rich, successful people aren't really having it. You know, they're kind of fed up with the taxes. A lot of people ask me, well, why are you still here, Rich? Why do you get out? And trust me, I'd leave yesterday if I could, but I've got anchors holding me here, you know, family obligations and stuff like that, which will become less of a issue as the years go on. So I'll be able to spend less and less time here eventually in the future. And, you know, people have always asked me about Pierre Poilievre as the conservative who they're largely predicting will take office at some point in 2025, whether it's March if they call an election or later on the year, in the schedule as it comes. But it's strongly predicted there's going to be a conservative government taking over. Speaking about the conservative government, because a lot of people are are thinking, oh, that's great. That'll just solve everything. Everything will get better overnight. We won't have any problems anymore after this. And I don't believe that's true. I just recently watched an interview with Pierre Poilievre and Jordan Peterson over on Peterson's channel. And it was interesting. It was about just under 2 hours long. And he covered some really significant portions of the issues that many Canadians are dealing with, which are making them contemplate the idea of joining the United States, the 51st state. But he missed the mark, if I can be honest. Justin Trudeau has done a number on this country. He's really screwed up. He's a smug, narcissistic moron that's basically crammed wokeness down everybody's throat and set aside the importance of what matters to the people that live here. The reason why people come here, they basically came here for a better life. That's why my parents came here from England, to come for a better life, more opportunity. And while that might have been true, 40, 50 years ago, I don't think it's true anymore. Tax rates are obnoxious. Let's talk about that for a sec, because I don't think the Conservatives are going to be able to fix that. And your top tax rate is 53%. You're paying a sales tax on items that you purchase at 13%. The Canadian equivalent of fuel in Canadian dollars is about $7.50 per gallon. You can convert that to USD if you want for fuel, because of all the taxes, the carbon tax, the federal tax, the provincial tax, the whatever tax. They shove all of those on the fuel prices, which doesn't make any sense, because we should be oil independent. We shouldn't be importing oil. We've got tons of oil in Canada, but with the silly climate laws or climate policies that the Canadian government has here, we don't use the resources, which is nuts. Like I said earlier, Dubai managed to figure it out and make a wonderful place to live for just about everybody in that country, with very low and reasonable tax rates, with a very high quality of living, which people don't experience here. A lot of people here are struggling to pay for groceries or skipping meals. Housing's obnoxiously expensive. To sort of put it in perspective, back around 2009-10, I had an affiliate that I dealt with down in Texas, San Antonio more specifically. A guy became a good friend of mine, and he was involved in the debt relief business. So that's what I was doing, before I started slapping my GoPro in the car and recording videos and talking about ideas, was I was in the debt relief space, and we ran a front end and a back end business. So what that meant is that we did the sales and the fulfillment. And my friend's company down in Texas, he just did the sales component. So he sold them in the contract, and the back end was fulfilled by other companies. So we had an affiliate agreement where he was contracting people and then sending them over to us. And that was when the Canadian dollar was at par back then. No longer at par today. It's at a very unfavorable rate. But he was also doing a lot of business in the United States as well. And the interesting thing about that, when we were sort of comparing life notes, was he wasn't running a full business. He was basically running 50% of the business that I was running. So he was missing out on some of the opportunity to make money. So there's that. But the lifestyle that he managed to live in Texas in the United States was significantly better than where I was at in 2009, 2010. So here's the Coles notes. I was driving a BMW M3 and E92 convertible. Nice car, $90,000 car. That was my only car. And he had a Range Rover and a Lamborghini. Paid off, no issues. Living in a gated community, 6,000 square foot home, which cost him about $450,000. Beautiful place, pool, all kinds of stuff, boat, wake surfing and stuff like that. And, the cost of my house at the time was about $2 million. It was custom built, and it was smaller. It was about 2,000 square feet smaller. The price of housing today is just absurd. Like, the average home in Toronto, in the greater Toronto area, probably is about $1.4 million for like a cookie cutter suburban home, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2,000 square feet, not in the downtown core, kind of like around the suburbia core, like 30 minutes out of the city. Whereas you can basically buy a castle in Florida or Texas or one of these other states for a very reasonable price. So totally different, set of living standards. And as you noticed in that video that I played earlier, the richest province in Canada, Ontario, has a lower GDP than the worse off state in the United States. So Canada, again, very resource-rich country run by absolute morons. This is the place that we're in. So back to Canada getting annexed and Trump and his conversation and what the Conservative leadership here is talking about, because they've explicitly said, Pierre made an announcement, he explicitly said, we're not having it. Donald Trump is not welcome to annex Canada. It's not necessary. We got this. And I don't believe that they have any interest whatsoever in that notion. Donald Trump, he's the kind of guy that when he senses weakness, he kind of exploits it. Like, he's not an idiot. You know what I mean? Some people don't like him, fine, whatever, but he's not an idiot. So it's tongue-in-cheek to some sense or regard, but you got to remember there's always some truth to every joke. So he might have been testing the water. In fact, I think he was testing the water. So how would that look like? Like, how would Canada become the 51st state of the United States? And I don't think it would be the entirety of Canada, because we're a vast country, larger than the United States, you know, by landmass, and we have regions. There's Atlantic on the East Coast, Quebec, which would probably just separate, and Quebec, you know, is French-Canadian, Ontario, which is central, which I think would welcome the idea overall, although there'd be some pushback from the liberal socialists in the large urban cities. Central Western Canada, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta. Alberta's kind of like prairie/mountainous, depending on east or west of the country, or province. And then you've got British Columbia, which is mountainous, more socialist. They'd probably opt out, I would think, but Central Canada would certainly want to join. And you got the Northwest Territories, which I suspect would probably also want to join as well. So I think that you'd see fractional parts of Canada that are interested in becoming part of the United States, and others that are not. When you look at the comments and notes on that video that I just played for you earlier, you'll see stuff like people in the comments saying, no thank you, or I want my free healthcare. And then you've got the other guys that are saying, I'd love the idea and I absolutely welcome the idea of becoming American and joining the United States. So, I mean, the three things that would be most attractive to me, and I'll tell you how I think it should happen if it does happen, would be much lower tax rates, significantly lower. They'd probably cut my taxes more than 50%, maybe up to 70%. I didn't even talk about what happens when you invest your after-tax income in things in Canada, because you pay 50% capital gains up to $250,000. After that, you pay 66% capital gains tax on you taking the risk of investing your money. So there's all these ridiculous taxes. And the other thing too, I forgot to mention, you know, you go out there and chase excellence, you put a dent in the universe, you make some serious money, and you want to go and reward yourself with a nice exotic car like a Lamborghini, let's say. Well, there's a luxury tax Trudeau introduced, which is going to cost you an extra $45,000 or so on a typical Lambo. I'm not talking the nice expensive one with the doors that go up, I'm talking the basic entry-level one. It's going to cost you about $45,000 on top of the 13% sales tax to get that car. So it's a very expensive and unfavorable place to live. They penalize excellence here, if I can put it that way. So again, lower taxes. I love the idea of the Second Amendment. We have a crime issue here I haven't even talked about. Carjackings, break-and-enters. We basically have a hug-a-thug policy in Canada under Trudeau's regime. People get convicted or, you know, for a crime, then they're out on bail, or they're out very, very quickly. And the vast majority of crimes are committed over and over again by the same degenerate pieces of garbage. They don't lock them up here anymore. Whereas in the past, we had done things like that. The other thing too that Pierre Poilievre forgot to address in his interview with Trudeau, which I found absolutely astounding, was Trudeau has decided to steal private property of Canadians. I'll put a card up on the top right. I did a video on the new gun ban that Trudeau had passed, and he's essentially wanting to seize and send my private property, which you own legally here, over to Ukraine, to Zelensky. It's funny, I was at the gun shop yesterday picking up a bore sight, a laser bore sight, and I was talking to him about all the guns that they had for sale, because I'd literally bought one a month before he passed this new gun ban. I said, what are you guys doing with all the guns? You know, have you sent them all over to Ukraine yet? He goes, Ukraine doesn't want them. He goes, a lot of them are pink or they're 22s. You don't use those for warring or anything like that. I said, well, what do you think is going to happen? You know, he said the vast majority of gun owners are basically at the spot or the position that they're hoping the conservative governments are going to claw back that ridiculous law and allow us to start using our, you know, sporting rifles for sporting purposes and target and stuff like that. But, you know, that's where we are. So there's that. Well, guys, the way that I think that the United States should participate in the annexation of Canada, here's how it would go down, because the government here has made it clear that they don't welcome the idea. But the government here also doesn't have the means to defend the country should the United States decide to walk in. And I think that's how they would have to do it. It would have to be a friendly walk-in, if I can put it that way. The day of, probably fly some planes, drop some flyers, some leaflets, social media announcements. Hey, we're coming to fix you guys, and here's what we're going to give you. Exchange Canadian dollars at par for USD, citizenship, much lower tax rates. You'll be able to maintain healthcare, because that seems to be a big issue for some people. I don't know why healthcare here isn't the greatest. I can do an entire video on why that sucks. But basically make the announcement and just walk in peacefully. And I think what would end up happening is, for the most part, the vast majority of Canadians would embrace it. Some may resist, but those that resist don't have the means to resist because they're weak anyway. They're liberal soy socialists, and they wouldn't have any means to repel, you know, if I can put it that way. So that's the way that it would have to be done. You guys wanted to hear me chime in on this topic, so there's my 2 cents. The comment section is open. Drop in your 2 cents. Let me know what you guys think. I personally would welcome the idea. I don't think a new conservative government here in Canada is going to improve things in any sense, regard, or measure. I think what would happen at best is things would stop getting worse. Poilievre has said nothing about lowering taxes. He just said cutting a carbon tax, which is really BS. It's one tax on fuel, big deal, right? But said nothing about anything else. We've got a huge deficit here. He's not going to be able to do anything about fixing the housing crisis with the extreme costs of housing within a 4-year term. It's not going to happen. Again, no talk about lowering taxes, no ability to fix the housing crisis. Deal with the immigration issue is going to take quite a while. They've brought in something like 4.9 million immigrants during Trudeau's regime, if I can put it that way, and that's only in the last few years. I think the last 4 or 5 years. It's very, very difficult to fix that clusterfuck of a problem that Justin Trudeau has created. So you guys let me know what you think in the comments below. That's just my 2 cents on the topic. You know, I could probably go longer on it, but I'll leave it on that note. See you guys later. Peace out.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.